I'm so happy that we could make this happen.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. I was just
No
like,
problem.
how can I annoy this person so much? That she never want to talk to me again. Well,
No problem at all. Um, I've had many interviews with people who were in a situation like they were not being talked about for 20, 30 years. They released something, and then it's very uncommon for them that somebody is willing to get in touch with them and talk to them and want to hear their
right.
stories. And they are like very careful. And so I'm pretty much used to this situation, and asking us solo.
No, I was happy to talk. It's just sometimes hard to like coordinate a time.
Absolutely. So,
That
well,
makes sense.
Brian, it's awesome, and it will be a special episode of a category we have, Hidden Jewels of Soul and Disco. And before you introduce yourself and tell the whole story about it, I'm going to tell the people how I got aware of this. It was an Instagram ad, I think. And
Wow.
it had the writing on it, the same as on the hyper sticker,
Right.
ridiculously rare 70s A Kansas Soul album. And I was like, written like reused for the first time, and I'm like, yeah, marketing stuff. You read that with vinyl every now and then, and I was like, no, this is marketing stuff. And so I did some research, and I was just like, holy, they were not fooling around, because
They're not
they were
joking.
not fooling around. If that record ever turns up, it's between 350 and $1,000 if it turns up. And I must admit that it's one of the greatest soul albums I have ever listened to from an artist I have never heard of. And
That's great.
you are one of these people who made it possible for people like me to get a reissue with this great soul album for a decent price. So please, Brian, introduce yourself and tell us the whole story about this phenomenal great album.
Sure. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah, we try not to joke around. We try to be serious with the hype sticker. No marketing ploys. Um, but yeah, I'm Brian Sears, and I live in Brooklyn, New York, and have been dealing with soul music, obscure soul music, ever since kind of college. Got um, really entrenched into this world. I would say post college. I lived in Austin, Texas, for a brief period of time, and worked on a number of projects. But I've been in New York for approaching 9 years, and over the past, I would say five years or so, I've 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 coordinated and worked with the number. I've worked on a number of projects with Ewan Fryer at Athens of the North. He heads up that label, and I've known him um, for a number of years. I mean, when I was in college, he had a message. It was like a message board or a forum called Fryer Mantis. It was like a funk like forum, and I was in college, and a lot of people. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they were. It wasn't explicit, but yeah, they would call me. They'd call people out, and me being so new and fresh, I was a little intimidated, but it was still cool to be a part of that. And I've just been a fan of this music ever since I could remember. Kind of got introduced to it in college through some friends that were older than me, some um, upperclassmen, I guess, and kind of like took their knowledge and ran with it. And it's been a huge part of my life, continues to be a huge part of my life. And uh, it's really the preservation of these people's history and music that really appeals to me more so than anything. I mean, yeah, I like to play records just as much as anyone else. I like to trade records just as much as anyone else, but really what gets me going, and where I find or what I find to be most fulfilling, is really being able to meet these people face to face, and to see that their legacy is not forgotten. And it's preserved, and whatever they wish, however they wish the music to live on. I want to meet them. I want to meet them. You know, I want to meet their wishes accordingly, I guess. And so, yeah, it's a really big part of my life. It's been an enormous part of my life. I would say, like, over the past 5 years. Um, and with the pandemic and all, it was kind of a perfect storm of opportunity for me. I was working corporate jobs, like suit and tie type jobs. It was very uh, I would not be wearing a Sun t-shirt right now. A few years ago, on a Monday at noon. But that's kind of neither here nor there. But ultimately, with the pandemic happening, I was able to end up helping my parents move from Kansas to Arkansas. And my sister has lived in Arkansas for about 10 years. And I uh, I was always fascinated and really interested in the music from that region. Um, most most notably, True Soul Records out of Little Rock, Arkansas. Um, William Stuckey had played a big role within that label. He played organ, or piano on a number of those recordings, whether people know it or not. I mean, that's a fact. So, I was really fascinated by that. Have become friends with the label owner, Lee Anthony. Have a lot of respect for him. But yeah, to go back with this being kind of a perfect storm of opportunity. I finally had the time to dedicate to this music. Up until the pandemic, it was just kind of something that I worked on the side. And with the pandemic and having the flexibility and freedom, it allowed me to kind of drive around, and meet with these people, try to coordinate some time to actually speak with them face to face, and actually meet with them physically. It's just really important. I mean, sometimes it's weird, and I'm sorry if I'm going off on a tangent here, but a lot of these people, they made music years ago. This is stuff that came out decades ago, and it might be just sort of a memory. But that being said, it definitely is an extension of them. And with the conversations that I have with musicians and people that made music, artists, um, label owners, etc. It's just something that really speaks highly to me, and it resonates, given the fact that it's American history. And um, for people like yourself and me that appreciate old vinyl records, we're aware of that history. I mean, it's sort of a niche community, but um, I guess for me, like, it's the my number one pursuit, I would say, is to try to get this music out in a larger way. That instead of it being instead of catering to like a niche community, or appealing to that, you know, the aim is to try to appeal to a large audience. Have there be mass appeal. Um, and I think songs like The First Time, like by William Stuckey, I think it I feel like it succeeds that. I feel like it hits the mark. So I often say, people are into this music, they just don't know it exists. So it's wonderful to have a label. I mean, yeah, there's copious amounts of reissue labels anymore, but I really I feel a lot of pride and honor with being able to work with such a great label, and great individual like you and Fryer at Athens of the North. Just to see that this music comes out and is preserved, and it's done accordingly. It's not just like it's not a rush job. There's a lot of attention to detail that's made, especially like within um, the records getting pressed and properly mastered. I really feel like, they do a really tremendous job with doing that. So, I'm happy to be involved. And, you know, I guess just to finish the whole, having this time, and, it being a pandemic, and really, um, sort of submerging myself in the music, and, uh, and that, oh, I don't know where, um, basically all I'm trying to say is, with that time and that flexibility, it allowed me the opportunity to start, 5 or 6 projects, around the country. So the Stuckey was a project. There's a project coming out later this year out of Birmingham. One that will come out later this month, out of Selma, Alabama. Um, have another project coming out, out of Nashville, and they're all exciting. And these are people's legacies that need to be preserved. And I'm happy to just have, you're happy to contribute and happy to assist, uh, you know, um, with these people and their legacies, because it's really important to me, and I know that it's important to them. Um, Often these people are incredibly humble, and I'm sort of the guy that's like, oh, you need to, you should be standing taller, because you have a lot to be proud of, and hold your head up high, because what you've done, um, and what you've made, what you've created is very, very powerful and meaningful, and will resonate with a lot of people. um, so that's probably the most I've ever talked, as far as an answer. you know um, God,
No,
if I was on a date or something like that, and like I think that was the answer I gave, the person would probably they'd get up from
no,
the table.
that's perfect how the way you explain it, because it's very important to know the background about that. And
Yeah,
back in the days, people like William Stuckey didn't get the credit for the stuff they did. I mean, seriously, on this album, he produced, he wrote, he arranged everything on that album, and it's absolutely brilliant. And hardly people know about that. And with the reissue labels and the work you do, people like me finally get aware of that. Without
right.
you guys, I would have never heard of that.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, and that really is incredibly touching. And you know, he was really, he was such a soft spoken individual. I only met with him once, but all of the words that he said were very powerful and meaningful. And I take a lot of great, pride, and um, it, an honor with being able to spend the time that I did with him, even if it was brief. It definitely was something that I'll remember for the rest of my life. And yeah, this is the album.
So
Um,
perfect. Thank you very much that you're showing it. First of all, the question: why is the reissue cover different from the original one? Is there a special reason to it?
no, I think we just wanted to differentiate. Obviously, yeah, this is the original, but with reissues, sometimes they're look alike. It's kind of like, um, basically a replica of the album. But I think we wanted to do it differently, because in a lot of ways it is different, and more, I guess, more specifically, with this project, I reached out. I mean, I can give you some background, but I found this record, and in Little Rock, where it's from, and was pretty blown away by the music, especially the first time. I thought to myself, wow, this is something that definitely should come out, just given how many things are coming out anymore. But uh, beyond that, I really feel like there's a lot of opportunity for that song in particular to potentially get licensed to TV or film, or sampled through other music. I feel like it really lends itself to that, just sonically. So anytime that I come across something that I feel, has the possibility of getting licensed, that further like just gives me more incentive to want to actually do something. So I knew that he was local to the area, and I reached out to him. I called Stuckey, and he didn't answer. I left left voicemails. I wasn't beating down his door or anything like that. I wasn't calling repeatedly, but I tried to let it be known that, I was interested, and, there was an opportunity for his music to get re-released. And, he didn't respond, didn't reply. So, I thought to myself, well, that's too bad. Um, but then the more I thought about it, I said, well, I guess I'll reach out to a family member. So uh, I guess I'm going through my process here, but yeah, I reached out to his son, and we had a brief conversation. I basically introduced myself, sort of a shorter version of what I provided for you. Uh, you know, basically told him, who I was, and what I've done in the past, and ultimately how I could potentially help, and how that I was eager to help, and that I believed in the music, and I thought there would be a viable market for it. And um, he was interested, he was intrigued, and obviously reluctant, like, or just apprehensive, like anyone would be, talking to a stranger over the phone. Um, uh, yeah, that's always the biggest hurdle. I'm essentially cold calling these people, but it's a warmer cold call, because I'm talking about something specific to their life. It's not like I'm like, hey, like, I heard you were looking for a vacuum. No, it's like I'm talking about something that is an extension of their career. So, um, with him, he he was really receptive on the phone, and obviously still a little apprehensive, but receptive. So we made arrangements to meet up, and just meet face to face. So I ended up meeting him at a Walmart parking lot in Little Rock, Arkansas. And it's funny to think about, and I think I told you this when we tried to talk before, but you know, just kind of how things like that could happen. Where for me, this was a pretty significant moment that was happening in this parking lot in Middle America, um, wherein I was meeting someone that was related to Stuckey, and what made it even more meaningful was after meeting for a few minutes, or just having a brief conversation, he basically opens up the back door of his truck and pulls out the master tapes
No way.
of the record.
Oh, wow.
And I guess that that ties into it being this really significant moment in this parking lot, because then and there I'm looking at these tapes, these giant tapes.
Hmm.
They're 2-inch reels, and just like thinking to myself, wow, this is incredible. Here we are in this Walmart parking lot, and here we are in this parking lot. It doesn't matter. We could be in any parking lot, but here we are, and he's showing me these tapes, and just seeing the tapes in general. A lot of artists, they lose their tapes. These things are old. They've been around for 30, 40 years, 50 years, sometimes in an attic, basement, closet, and luckily they were preserved, and they looked okay to me, from the outside. They just like look like old tapes, and he handed them over to me and said, listen, you know it's in your hands. You have my trust. Like, kind of like, don't mess this up. And you know, I promised him I wouldn't. You know, I kind of let him know how we wanted to proceed, and you know, he was on board and was entrusting in us to do things right. And you know, I didn't want to let him down. And
So you guys
so
met the first time, and at the first time he brought you the tapes.
that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. The first
Wow.
time we met in person, he yeah, he showed, well, he handed over the master tapes, um, which is like a really big deal. Because I wasn't expecting that to happen. And I to think that we're in this parking lot, people are just kind of like living and going about their everyday lives, and this like this transfer is kind of happening, like pretty mind bending. Um, but yeah, I you know, we shook hands, and parted ways. And I said, you know, we're not going to let you down. Like you have our trust. We want to do this right. We will do this right. And then, you know, comes, I guess, part two, where we shipped the master tapes. Again, they looked okay, to me, but I'm no specialist. I mean, from the outside looking in, they mean looked okay, but we sent them to a guy that specializes in archival tape, being able basically, I mean, so many people. There's only so many people in the world that specialize in you know, being able to transfer old tape, and this guy in California, that's something that he specializes in. And I guess the crazy thing about this tape in particular was there was a film of mold that was on the tape, and in order to actually you know, complete the transfer, they had to clean every 30 seconds. It was either every 20 or 30 seconds over the course of the entire album. So obviously it was a really arduous process, really time consuming. Um, but that being said, there were the original notes, in the master tapes as well, just like the studio, like Stuckey's notes of, you know, how he wanted everything to sound. Because you know, for Stuckey, you know, he had exceptional hearing. I mean, he's a blind man, and you know, I think was a virtuoso. Just you know, he not only did he play organ and piano, I mean, he played a number of different instruments and just had it amazing sense of hearing. And you know, when I talked to him over the phone, he said that, you know, he was frustrated and disappointed with the way that this album, the original, came out. More specifically, it was just sort of a botched mastering job. It was just hastily done, so it really wasn't up to his specs. So when he got it, yeah, I mean, like any artist, any musician, I'm sure it's really thrilling to finally get like an end product, right? Be able to hold your album in your hands. And I'm sure it was for him. I mean, I can't really speak on his behalf, but um, I just know that he was frustrated with how things ended up. So to go back with the gentleman in California, sort of remastering it to, you know, the specifics that Stuckey had laid out, like in the notes and all. It really, well, I mean, the finished product was how he intended it to be, which, you know, ultimately leads up to the conversation that I had over the phone with Stuckey. So Stuckey would check in with me from time to time just to see how things are going. I mean, these things aren't overnight, by any means, but he reached out to me and you know, was curious about how things were going, how it sounded, but like, you know, most importantly, like how things sounded. he was really, really curious to how it was sounding, really excited to hear how it sounded. And so, finally we had something that we could send over, and that was, the finished master. So I sent that over to his son, and his son shared it with him. And I'll never forget that phone conversation that I had with him. I mean, it was just like, it's the happiest anyone could ever sound, he was just so ecstatic with, the how it finally sounded remastered. He was like, wow, it sounds better than I could have ever imagined. um because it was how he intended it to be. We took we took the time, the gentleman in California, specifically took the time to go about every track, how he intended it to sound. And so, with this, it's like basically, um, how Stuckey wanted it to be. And so it's like the best representation of his music in this album. So I mean, yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's a whole other conversation of, reissues versus originals. But I would say, like, sonically, like, yeah, this is like the best representation of the music. Um, some people just like to have the original just for the sake of it being original. But I mean, if you want to talk about the music and how it sounds and how it's mastered, this is like superior.
Yeah,
So
and it's actually, and thank you for adding this, that he finally got the version he always wanted to hear. So if you want to have the version he wanted to have been released at that
that's
time,
right.
you need to buy the reissue, because
Yes.
usually you have, like you said, you have this talk, oh no, I always want to have the original, because the original was the version that the singer or songwriter or producer or whoever wanted the record to sound. But in this case,
Yes.
it's quite the opposite. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
perfect that you pointed that out.
Yeah. I mean, it's just yeah, it's the superior version. And it sounds better than ever. I feel like, all the levels are right. And he was thrilled, just thrilled to pieces about basically the completed record.
Okay, perfect. So, Brian, you guys added a bonus track to that record, which was called Just Around the Corner, and it's an instrumental, and I wish William would have added vocals to it. Why was there a specific reason to add that? Is there more unreleased stuff for that record?
Yes. You know, our the thing that really gets us excited, us just as much as anyone else, is unreleased material. It's always really exciting to have, like, obviously, like a classic record come out and be able to have the tapes. I don't know if people know this, but a lot of reissues that come out, the master is actually just like it's like a rip of original copy of the record. To actually locate and find the original master tapes is really hard, because these things have been sitting around for decades. Sometimes they're in terrible shape. Sometimes they're just, they were lost, they were forgotten, they were destroyed. A number of different things. But uh, so with Stuckey and being able to locate, having them be in his possession, and for us to uh, to get them was a big deal. And yeah, there is and was unreleased material on the tapes. So we're excited to announce that there will be a single coming out later this month, tied to this record. So it's interesting. The the instrumental, I'm assuming there were no vocals on that, because if there were, we would have added it. But with the upcoming single that is coming out, it just dawned on me that's a whole other story. And it's interesting because there was a gentleman that I that reached out to me. Uh, he reached out to me over this past summer, and we talked about Stuckey. He was a gentleman that played with Stuckey. He played with other True Soul artists like Thomas East, just locally in Little Rock. And the last conversation that I had with Stuckey was at his house. It was the first and only time that we actually met in person. And it was really really special moment for me. It was just so. I think it was I think it was special for him too. I mean, just it, I said this the other day. I mean, like people appreciate being appreciated. That's just it's in general, and that's all I wanted to do, and let him know that yes, I myself appreciated and appreciate what he did and what he does, and like who he is and who he was. um and I think he felt that. But not only that, like I just wanted to let him know that, I mean, a lot of these artists that recorded back in the day, I mean, they're aware that, people are into it. I mean, people will call and, ask questions, but, I really just tried to solidify the fact that, it was beyond me, it's beyond, people calling, that there really is interest in this music. And there's a global audience, and I think this conversation only solidifies that even further. I mean, to be speaking with you over in Germany, and you not knowing about the record but now knowing about it and it really resonating with you, uh it really speaks volumes. So that's really special. But to go back, sorry to go off on a tangent there, but to go back to your question, um, this single that came out, this gentleman that played with Stuckey, he had a tape of this song, of this session, and it's around the same time period, if not the same time period as this album, and it sounds amazing. I mean, you and who I work with, who heads up the label, he considered it to be his best song,
Wow.
and it's
Okay.
going to come out later this month. So really, really excited to have that come out. But when I met with Stuckey, our last conversation, he was really excited because he thought that this song didn't exist. He thought it had been, he thought it had been lost altogether. He didn't think that anyone had any sort of tape. But this gentleman in Arkansas, he had it, has it, and he was able to provide that to us, and did a wonderful job with mastering it, and I was able to basically sign that on as an extension of this album, and it will come out later this month. So really looking forward to people being able to hear this song that is unreleased altogether. No one has ever heard this song, and it is basically just an extension of Love of Mine. So really, really cool and exciting.
Are you willing to share the name of the track with us?
Oh yeah, yeah. Just stay tuned. Just stay tuned. Yeah, check. Keep refreshing the Athens of the North Bandcamp and or the Instagram page, and yeah, soon enough you will know.
Perfect.
So keep it mysterious.
Yeah. So then all material from William Stuckey is then released by that time, or is there some more in the vaults coming up?
Um, that is all the music that I think we're going to be dealing with, at least for the time being. I mean, who's to say? I mean, it's sort of tangentially attached to a much larger label, which is a whole other conversation, that I don't know if we have time for, given the fact that like I keep on providing you with 10-minute answers. But yeah, it's related to an incredible imprint, True Soul Records, that I mentioned before. Uh, William was a key fixture of that label. He played organ and piano on a number of those recordings. He recorded, under his name on that label, alongside of a number of other musicians. Uh, that music has been re-released already. If people are interested in checking that out, I think uh, Now Again did something years ago, but and did a great job with that release. But that is True Soul Records, out of Little Rock, Arkansas, and the True Soul Records is kind of like what ultimately, it was kind of what jump started William altogether. I mean, William was discovered at the School for the Blind and Deaf in Little Rock through Lee Anthony, who was the head of True Soul Records, and immediately recognized that the talent that Stuckey was, and essentially took him under his wing, and uh, he was just a part of so many different recordings that have a following in of themselves. Like, there's a lot of soul and R&B enthusiasts around the world that are familiar with these songs, like Thomas E. Slipping Around. And if you listen to that, I mean, that was a track that was introduced to me in college, and I was really blown away by the piano playing. And I always just assumed, I mean, you have these assumptions, I guess, in your head when you're listening to music. You try to visualize it. You try to, put yourself in that time and that place. I mean, at least that's how it is for me whenever I listen to old recording. I kind of put myself there. But yeah, I always envisioned Thomas East playing piano, but no, sure enough, it was William Stuckey. So that kind of blew me away.
Why was there no follow-up to this album? Was it because of less attention, less promotion? Because it was pretty much the music they played at that time. So have you any clue why no follow-up was done?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think there was other music that came out, but I think it was just, I think Love of Mine, that was like kind of his biggest pursuit. I mean, like, I think he really went for it. I mean, it was just kind of like a solo endeavor for him. I mean, he was involved with True Soul Records, and I think ultimately just decided to detach himself from that and just kind of do his own thing. And that's ultimately what led up to this album. Um, so I don't think it was necessarily like discouraged or anything like that. Like, I mean, he continued to play. I mean, he continued to play locally in Little Rock, but I mean, I guess it's just speculation. But I mean, these things are, they're not cheap. Like, uh, it's one thing to constantly, be creative and try to put something out, but like, putting things out in a larger way. I mean, there's just a lot of things that go into that process. Most notably just capital. I mean, it's expensive. These things aren't cheap, and so I can't really speak on the success of Love of Mine from back in the day. I mean, I assume it was just kind of something that got some regional attention, but it definitely didn't make, wasn't on the airwaves, around the country or anything like that. um
Hmm.
it was just kind of an obscurity. But over the years, I think it was something that collectors started to recognize, as they do, right? People from overseas, people in Germany, people in Japan, like, they start to become aware of these recordings through conversations. Maybe like someone showed it to them, and it kind of becomes something else. And I think that that's kind of what happened to William Stuckey. I mean, for so many years, it was just sort of this long lost obscurity. But with DJs out there playing and championing, being champions of this kind of music, um, it kind of takes a life of its own. Uh, which I would say kind of led to me wanting to put this out because I already knew that it was already established. Um, to go back to your earlier point, where it's like, yeah, like, you know, this record, in the marketplace, trades for some money.
Yeah.
Um, but that's all good and fine. I mean, people are always going to be spending money on records, but I guess the nice thing about reissues, and I think it kind of leads to Ewan and sort of his mission is to be able to put out really good music for a affordable price, that can be accessible to a large audience, as opposed to just sort of this niche collectors circuit or world.
Yeah, what else is for me a very important point is I think William is not getting a dime from the stuff he did back then. So if a record is being sold for 500 or $1,000, he's not seeing, or his his family is seeing a dime. So with this,
Absolutely, yeah,
that's
that's a really
you know
that's a really good point. And that that's always kind of a difficult conversation to have with people that made music back in the day. I mean, people tend to just fixate on price,
mm,
and but that applies to any sort of collectible. I mean, we could be talking about comic books. I mean, my sister, she makes fun of me. She thinks that like I'm trading Pokemon cards. It's like it's the equivalent of that. But no, I mean, people spend all sorts of money on all sorts of things. And yes, unfortunately, the people that made these things don't see any dime. It's just sort of like these transactions that happen among collectors. So it's unfortunate that the artist isn't getting paid, but maybe they see that these prices, and the record is trading hands for that much money, and it's really alarming. And I don't blame them. I mean, if I made something and that was being sold for however much, yeah, I'm sure my my eyes would open up a little bit wider,
mm,
and it'd be frustrating. And but on the opposite end, I mean, it's something that should be encouraging. I mean, people really covet these long lost recordings and originals. There is a market for it. People appreciate it, and if they didn't appreciate it, then they wouldn't be spending money. So um you know I'm just a fan more than anything that people are open-minded enough to like want to give these records a chance, including yourself, obviously. You didn't know this about this record. You were saying that you were alerted like through an Instagram ad or something like that,
mm.
and you felt compelled to check it out, and you know it struck you, it resonated with you. So that's really amazing.
Yeah, and also the thing is that you're not only spreading it via vinyl, it's also available digitally. So you have a new target group, a new kind of people who get used to that music, which is also a big plus, in my opinion, to spread the message of
Oh,
music.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, um, whenever I talk to people, or just have conversations with people in the industry from back in the day, um, the way that people are listening to music, it's not on record. I mean, yes, records never went away, and people are collectors, and people that are enthusiastic about vinyl. They're going to buy those records, and it is fun. But I would say, like, for your ordinary people walking down the street, they don't really, they're not they're not looking on Discogs, you know, like they're not on they're not on eBay, and more power to them, and more power to their bank account probably. No, but like the way that people are consuming music is digitally. So you hit the nail on the head with, you know, that's the way that people are accessing music and consuming it and telling their friends. It's like, check out this, you know. It's like the way that these songs sort of take a life of their own is like, if it gets on a playlist that gets shared over and over and over again, that's when you have a situation where it's like you have this obscure song that before you know it has, you know, over a million listens on Spotify, which is pretty crazy. But it's definitely within the realm of possibility.
A question which is always kind of topic, especially with audiophile now all over the place, is and especially with reissues, is this reissue an all analog production?
Yes.
So it's even more reason to buy this record, because it's for an all analog production, sounding the way the artist wanted it to sound. I think it's about 30 or 35 bucks. So this is just a perfect price for this whole package. I mean, seriously, it's awesome.
Oh yeah, I agree, and it definitely anymore anytime I think just like being involved with this process and understanding like what all goes into this. I mean, there's a lot behind the scenes that goes into these things coming out. It's not like they just magically appear.
Yeah.
And I think for us as consumers, we tend to think that but yeah, no, there's a lot of things that happen from start to finish, for it being on a shelf, whether it's physically or digitally. There's a lot that goes on. So yeah, for 30 bucks, given just the magnitude of this project, I mean, there was a lot that went on, and all things considered, I feel like you're getting a pretty okay deal.
It's a perfect deal. Seriously, you
Yeah.
get an audiophile record, newly remastered from the original tapes, and all analog production.
Yes.
It's just perfect. Just perfect pricing and everything. So yeah, I would everybody getting back to the hyper sticker again. No.
Yes. All comes back to the hype sticker.
All comes back to the hype sticker. So Brian, thank you so much for taking the time for explaining to us how all of that happened. And I do hope that we talk again when you talk about the other projects, because
Sure. Yeah.
I'm so hooked up on all the stuff you guys doing, because it's just awesome. It's just brilliant. And I do hope that people are getting to know more about that label and getting to know more about the music and supporting the label, so that you can bring out stuff like this and support the artists and also right. the families with the recognition and the historical impact they deserve.
Right. I mean, I think, more than anything, I just try to be an agent for these people and their stories. I'm just one piece of the puzzle. I think more than anything, I mean, the people that need to be recognized are the artists. All I'm just trying to do is help, facilitate that, and get it out in a larger way, so that, when you have a conversation with someone about this music, they can actually go on the internet via, Apple Music, Spotify, and check it out. And maybe they feel inclined, maybe they feel compelled to buy it on vinyl, maybe not, but at least gives them the opportunity to hear it, and the family and the artists themselves get some recognition. But I'm not sure if you knew this or not, but that meeting that I had with William was at his house in Little Rock. And I met some of his neighbors, and they were curious who I was, why I was there, and I let them know, and they were familiar with his music, and they, as I was leaving, they pulled it up on YouTube, and they were playing it in the car while they were just sitting out chilling, on their lawn chairs, um, uh, just kind of hanging out. But they had the music blasting in the car, and as I was leaving, it was sort of echoing in the distance, and I'll never forget that. And unfortunately, about a month later, I got word that he passed away.
Mm.
So William Stuckey passed away this past summer, but I know that he was thrilled, and his family's thrilled that he's finally getting his share and his recognition and his some shine. And that's really why I continue to strive to do these things. You know, there's definitely days that there isn't much going on, but those days where I'm actually able to meet these people face to face and to hear their stories and to hear how they want to be remembered, and how they remember their music, it really it's something that I think about on a daily basis,
Mm.
and it really keeps me engaged with trying to do more. I mean, there's so much music out in the world, um, even now more so than ever. But for me, like, I really just try to like pinpoint specific projects that I feel like will resonate with a larger audience, might potentially have mass appeal, and um, also might be licensable. Because it's like the having a song in a commercial, or in a TV show or a film, that even further gives this music a whole other life, and basically things can turn and basically take a life of their own, like I've said before.
So when's the next project coming out?
Next project, well, I think there is the William Stuckey 45 will come out later this month, and there is another 45 that will come out later this month, by Dr. T and the Soul Pushers. And
Okay.
that song is called "Love Is a Heartbreaker." It's an incredible ballad. It came out. It's not an unreleased track. It did come out. It's similar to William Stuckey. It's really hard to find. It's one of those elusive 45s that only so many people have, and I don't even have a copy of it. I don't even
That
have an
means
original.
something.
Yeah, no, I don't even have an original. I'm still looking. But yeah, that's coming out, and really, really, really excited to see that finally come out. Unfortunately, he is he's another artist that passed away during this time. I was able to meet with him during the pandemic, but yeah, unfortunately, he died this past November. But he was, like Stuckey, really, really, really excited to have his music finally come out again.
So there will be
look out
another
for that.
special about that. We'll talk about that.
Yeah,
That's
we'll talk about that
amazing.
next time. But yeah, I mean, sorry. Hopefully that was, I don't mean to leave on a downer, but like the music is really it's really powerful, and it's super cinematic. I think a lot of the music that I gravitate towards has sort of a cinematic flair, um, or just sort of sensibility to it, and I think that sort of also applies to the William Stuckey record. So
Yeah. Brian,
anyway,
all the best to you, and talk to you soon.
sounds great. Have a good
Okay.
day.
Yeah, you too.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.